Time to go upon further review. What exactly did the 49ers do right? What went wrong? What the tape tells us about how these 49er players played in this game, and can they take the good things into the next week, the bad things, leave them behind? We're going to talk about all that and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Upon further review. And that means I've went through the film. I've watched the all 22. Of course, first half film breakdown available over on Patreon if you want to go check those out. All 22, in zone, everything you're looking for, every play all season long available on Patreon. But you get a clearer picture on what went right in this game and what went wrong. And some things you don't see on the TV copy. Just watching the TV copy compared to the film, it's entirely different. But I saw a lot of positive for the 49ers, and I saw a lot of things that I liked, and then I saw some things that stood out that I didn't like. And so these are always the coaching points that I went through. This is no different than what I would have done to my team. I would have broke down the film. I would have examined what went right, what went wrong, and then I would have talked to the players about it. We would have had meetings. We would have went out and worked on it. Try to get better at the things you're not doing so well, and the things you are doing well, try to capitalize and do even better at those things. So this is no different than what the 49ers do, and that's why they always say tell the truth Monday. You just look and examine yourself really hard. That way you can get better. And the 49ers need to get better. There's no other way to say it. Right now, they're not playing up to the expectations that the fans have for them, for the ownership, for the front office, what the coaches or the players have for themselves. They know they are not reaching the expectations they should be. This should be a championship caliber team. But it's like Kyle says, you're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as your last play. You're only as good as your last kick. You've got to make sure you're doing things right at the right time. The good news is there's time still for the 49ers to right the ship and be playing great football down the stretch. I would argue they haven't put together a complete game yet. And if they ever do, they're probably going to dominate whichever team they're playing. And that's good news because they've got some good teams coming up. They've got a divisional matchup versus Seattle, and then they're traveling to Green Bay and then to Buffalo. This is a nice stretch of games that the 49ers can make or break their season on. If you win all three, you've made your season. If you lose all three, you broke your season. So the 49ers are in a critical moment in time and a critical moment in the 2024 season. And I wouldn't say it's all roses. But you've got time to figure it out. So 49ers definitely got to get better in a few areas. And, of course, we know special teams is definitely one of those areas. We'll be talking about special teams. But I'm going to talk about offense and defense as well. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network, please give it a 5-star rating. If you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC to MMA. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. So I want to start on the offensive side of the football, and I know there's a lot of guys we need to talk about here. Brock Purdy, criticized for his first half play, but overall put up some wicked numbers, over 350 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, which is pivotal because the 49ers are 4-0 this season when Brock Purdy doesn't turn over the football. They're also 16-0 in his career when Brock Purdy doesn't turn over the football. So there's a key element to Brock's success and the 49ers' success. And when you play the most important position in football, a lot of it's going to be tied to you. And I thought Brock Purdy did a good job in this game. It wasn't going to be easy. He was blitzed over 60% of the time. They were coming after him, and he had tremendous success against the blitz. It was also the return of Brock getting the ball out to his playmakers and letting them create a lot of yak yardage coming from George Kittle and Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and Deebo Samuel and, Christian McCaffrey. So the yak attack was back, and they were adding new bros to the mix. It was good to see Brock Purdy battling. Now, it wasn't all good and great for Brock. There was some accuracy issues here and there. I think he clearly missed George Kittle in the end zone for a touchdown the drive before he dropped the dime in the back corner, which was a phenomenal play. Buying time, rolling to the left, throwing off, resetting yourself, throwing off your feet, and then throwing this ball 30 yards and placing it right where George Kittle needed to get it. It was a phenomenal throw. And give credit to George Kittle going up and getting it, doing the toe tap. But it's the series before, and they throw a ball to Ricky Pearsall, and it's a little high. Pearsall's not able to wrangle it. So they come back on third down, and Pearsall creates space for George Kittle, who's running an out pattern. And so Pearsall gets to the pylon, and Kittle runs the out, and he's got it. He has beat Whitehead, and this should be a touchdown. And Brock Purdy just simply airmails it. Throws it over his head, throws it too far outside, and the 49ers miss an opportunity for touchdown. So there were missed opportunities for the 49ers when it came to that regard. Brock also missed a couple key third down throws, but those things are going to happen. That's football. You have to be able to overcome those things. And I thought Brock Purdy did a good job of staying in it, staying in the moment, and making some of the best throws I've seen him make. We've talked about the George Kittle in the red zone. How about the dime that he drops to Christian McCaffrey, throwing it tremendously early so he puts extra air on the football and drops it right in the bucket? It was like a Steph Curry 3 from extremely deep, and he put it right there on Christian McCaffrey. And McCaffrey does what he does, gets extra yardage. It's a big play and leads to a George Kittle touchdown. But also, how about the jump pass he throws, moving to the right, jumps and throws a back across the middle to Deebo, who's screeching across. And let's give Deebo credit. He goes behind him, makes the catch, turns upfield, and gets extra yards. But what a play from Brock Purdy. You're seeing those kinds of plays, the improvisation from Brock, that are definitely elevating this offense. And they needed it in this game because Brock was having to make plays with his arm. I give a lot of credit to Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay defense. They came up and they were not going to allow the 49ers run game to beat them. Now, when the 49ers were executing, especially in the first half, I think they caught Todd Bowles a little bit off guard. They came out in 11 personnel, which means they had 3 wide receivers on the field. They put Tampa Bay in the nickel. And when they did that, they were getting certain fronts. So by the time Kyle got to where he was running his 21 personnel with Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey on the field, he had realized that he was going to get a 8-man look and a 5-man front pretty consistently from Tampa Bay. Sometimes a 6-man front, but primarily a 5-man front. By figuring out what he was going to get, he knew what kind of looks he could get in the passing game. And they took advantage of it because Tampa Bay was not going to let the 49ers run on them consistently. But what we get from the 49ers is a nice adjustment to that. Now, with that being said, the 49ers left a lot of yards on the ground out there because of some bad blocking on the edges. I think there's a couple things that Kyle Juszczyk wish he could have back in this game. There's a couple blocks that if he makes, probably have big gainers. There's a couple missed blocks by Jake Brendel and Colt McKivitz. They didn't have their best game, especially when it came to run blocking. So that compounded a situation where you weren't going to get as many yards on the ground. And it wasn't an effective run game for the 49ers, and that really hasn't been the case all season. They've been able to consistently run the football. But it was a combination of factors when I watched it back. It was sometimes an offensive lineman missed a block, talked about McKivitz and Brendel. Sometimes it was Kyle Juszczyk out on the edge. That was a little bit of an issue in this game. And so the 49ers didn't get great blocking from Juszczyk at times, even though he battled and he did have some good blocks. I don't want to make it sound like it was all bad, but there was some I'm sure he would want back if he watched the film, and I'm sure he did. And so there's some things like that. But there's also some of the onus has to be put on the ball carriers. There was an opportunity for Deebo Samuel to have a touchdown in the run game. It was early on in the game. Christian McCaffrey was leading the way. And he didn't allow McCaffrey to set up the block, but he also didn't set the block himself. If he makes one step inside and goes to the outside, it is an absolute touchdown for Deebo Samuel, an explosive run game, an explosive run play. He did not. He cut up inside, and he got tackled right there. Now, it was still a good gain, but it should have been a touchdown. Kyle Shanahan got Debo one-on-one with the safety if he makes the right read. But he wasn't the only one. Jordan Mason had one carry in this game, and it's a toss play against a 6-1 defense. If you pin the edge and you get around the outside, it's you and who. And he did get around the outside, and he's going to have an opportunity to get to the safety, but he doesn't play the way he's supposed to run it. He doesn't run it right. His line is wrong. He's on the inside hip of Kyle Juszczyk, who's leading the way, who's going to be blocking someone directly in front of him. He's supposed to be on his outside hip. If he's on his outside hip, Kyle Juszczyk makes the block. He continues down the sideline, and he's one-on-one with the safety about 10 yards down the field. If he wins, the touchdown. If he loses, it's at least a 10 to 15-yard gain. But he gets too close. He plays on the hip pocket of the inside leg, and then the defender's able to jump inside with Juszczyk thinking that Jordan Mason's going to read his block and go outside, and he makes the tackle right there. Mason only gets 5 or 6 yards. That's the difference between an explosive run that changes the game and a 5 or 6 yard run. It's still good, but it's not great. That's 2 instances. But Christian McCaffrey also had the same thing happen. He had an opportunity where he could have been getting to the next level for a more explosive play, and he just cut it up a little bit too soon. So we've seen this pretty consistently from the 49ers. Debo had another bad run later where he ran into Kyle Juszczyk, and he had a two-way option. One of those options would have got him 5 or 6 yards. The other, maybe a bigger play, and he ran into Juszczyk. So we just weren't seeing it from the running backs and the guys carrying the football. Debo, not exactly a running back, a wide back, but they just didn't execute when they had opportunities, and especially on the edge. That's where the 49ers could have some opportunities on the outside. So it wasn't a great day vision-wise. I kind of understand what we're getting from McCaffrey. It was his first game back, and he's gonna figure this thing out. He's gonna get back in the flow. For Debo, I'm hard on Debo because I expect so much because I've seen so much. And with Jordan Mason, you're a skilled running back in the NFL. You can't be having those types of situations and those types of problems. And you only got one carry. And, that's unfortunate. I'd like to see him get a little bit more. But if you're not going to be making those plays, then Kyle Shanahan's going to want somebody else out there that will. And so those are one of the things you run into. So I thought it was a combination of key missed blocks here and there, and then just a few running back errors here and there that could have had even more explosives. And the first run of the second half for Christian McCaffrey is right up the middle. He makes a great read. And this is just showing you how well the run game could have been. They had one-on-one with McCaffrey on the safety. When you draw up a play, that's how you scheme it up. Let me get my running back one-on-one with the safety. You have a chance for a hole shot. Now, give Antoine Winfield credit. He stepped up and made the tackle, and it goes from what could have been an explosive touchdown to a 13-yard gain. That one I don't put on McCaffrey. That's tough. You got to make a guy miss. That's hard. But when you're talking about scheme and then blocking it up, you got to give full credit to the entire 49ers offense for blocking it up, Kyle Shanahan for drawing it up and calling it at the right time. So those are the types of things you like to see, and those are the situations that are so close. Might not break this time, but next time you might have an opportunity to break it. So I thought we saw some good things when it came to that. Now, one thing that wasn't being called in this game was holding. Holding was not called. They didn't call it on the 49ers. They didn't call it on the Tampa Bay offense either. So holding was not something the referees were looking for, which is interesting, right? Because a couple weeks ago, it felt like everything was holding. And so you get these different referee crews that just don't call things one way or the other. So I thought that was a very critical part of this game, and I'll get more into that when we talk about the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, it just wasn't being called in the game. And I've said this before, if you're not going to call it if you're going to call it both ways, like that's fine with me. That's the expectation. The players just got to figure it out. They've got to learn that that's not going to be called, and you got to get it done. Now let's talk about Ricky Pearsall, because Pearsall I thought looked good against Dallas, but he looked a whole new level of good against Tampa Bay. What we saw was a confident, comfortable Ricky Pearsall. He looked like he knew where he was supposed to be. He was breaking his routes off, and he was running very significant routes. His touchdown catch, he ran a great route on that. And Brock Purdy did a good job of holding Antoine Winfield and getting him to flip his hips. But it also coincided with a great route from Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall engages. He gets a little bit of space for himself when he's going to be able to break in by getting a little bit of an outside release. allowing that defender to float over. So he moved him horizontally a little bit. Then he breaks it upfield like it's going to be a vertical. So with Brock Purdy looking at Antoine Winfield and with him going vertical, Winfield thought, I have to cover the deep third. Here comes Ricky Pearsall on the deep one. And then he snaps it off, and Brock Purdy throws it with anticipation and hits. This is when you get the combination of quarterback doing the right thing, the look being right for the defense, and then the wide receiver running the correct route and getting to the right place at the right time. And then he hit the turbo, and he gets up the sideline and beats Antoine Winfield to the end zone for the touchdown. What a play by Pearsall. Great throw by Brock. Great read by Brock. It was a phenomenal play overall. But that wasn't the only time we seen Ricky Pearsall running good routes. There's actually another play. He's wide open. He snaps off one down the sideline. Creates a tremendous space between him and Zion McCollum. And Brock just didn't see him. He tries to throw back to Juwan Jennings after rolling to the right, and he throws it over Jennings' head. But he had Ricky Pearsall by 5 or 7 yards. I mean, it's wide open. Ricky absolutely ran a great route. So there are going to be more opportunities like that. But we saw Ricky get the ball in his hands and make plays, and he had one of the most critical catches in this football game in the fourth quarter on the last drive. They need to get into field goal range. He powers through a lot of contact, works himself to the middle of the field, and makes the catch right at where they need to get to be in Jake Moody's field goal range. So it was a great play. And on that drive, 49ers were throwing the football. They threw twice to Juwan Jennings. They threw it twice to Ricky Pearsall. And Tampa Bay wasn't going to allow Debo or Christian McCaffrey or Kittle to beat him. And that's fine. The 49ers felt comfortable and confident in their young rookie to step up and make plays when he needed to. And he did. And so it was a good showing from Ricky Pearsall. And I think we're just going to see even more. Sky's the limit for Pearsall. Him and Brock Purdy are going to build a chemistry. They're going to get more comfortable. Kyle's going to get more confident. Plus, Ricky Pearsall was also the best run blocker in this game. And there are plenty of times in this game you can go back and watch the film where he takes guys down. He put the middle linebacker, Levante David, on the ground on one of his blocks. He comes in for a crack, sticks with it, puts him in the ground. Phenomenal. And those are the types of things Ricky Pearsall's adding. You got to block if you're going to be a 49ers wide receiver. And I think that's one of the problems for Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing continued to not block well in this game. So he didn't get a lot of opportunities on offense. But, you know, when you're breaking it down, you get to the second half, they got a run play going to the outside with McCaffrey. And I'm like, man, why is there 3 defenders there? Well, part of the problem is Jacob Cowing whiffed on his block. And then somebody else tried to pick up his guy. Then he went to hit him and knocked the guy off of him. It wasn't a good showing from Jacob Cowing when it comes to offense. Right now, he is struggling when it comes to blocking. And so the 49ers are having to find ways to try to get him on the field. But how obvious is it if he's struggling like that and you're always running away from him, or every time he's out there, it's a pass or some sort of run to him? That's not going to work. Right now, he's nothing more than a gadget player. And even when they called a gadget play for him in Dallas, he lined up on the wrong side, and it ended up going to Ricky Pearsall. So right now, Jacob Cowing is not ready to be that guy. I keep hoping he's going to be. I love the speed. I love the ability in the passing game. I think he could be a threat. But right now, they can't consistently put him on the field because they have to worry about him not just lining up in the right spot, but executing his job when it comes to blocking. And so that's why we just don't see him as much. And so I'm hoping that we're going to see more from Jacob Cowing, but he's got to figure this thing out. He's got to be a better blocker because the 49ers definitely need to continue to run the football a little bit better. I think they could have easily had another 50 to 100 yards in this game with a couple of better blocks and a couple better execution when it came to reading blocks from the running backs. Now let's talk about defense, because I like what Malik Mustafa did in this game. Malik continues to grow as a defender. I thought he was really good in coverage again. He's not really being tested, and so that's good news. That means he's on his guy. He's doing his job. You know, as a defender, if they're not throwing it away, you're usually doing a good job. And if they are throwing it away, well, go make some plays on the football. And I thought Malik has been doing a good job when it comes to coverage. Now, one thing that did come up on film, Malik made so many great plays, including run stops in the box, and he was the best tackler in the entire game. I mean, he was phenomenal. But there was one thing that I did notice from him is he came up a little bit out of control on Bucky Irvin's touchdown, and you had a nice edge being set as far as a forced defender on the outside. He was the alley defender, and he came up out of control and actually hit a offensive player he didn't need to hit. And when he did, it knocked him out of control, and Bucky cut up inside where he should have been. So that was a situation where he's the alley defender. He should have been making the tackle, and he came up out of control, and it allowed Bucky Irving to cut back. And then after that, Fred's in a bad position because Fred undercut it, and then there's no way anyone else is going to make the play. It was a nice run by Irving, but it gets started because Malik Mustafa was a little out of control. And that's something we've talked about a lot, and he's gotten a lot better at it. But here's another opportunity where he could have stepped up and made a huge play right there, and he was just a little too eager. By being too eager, he actually knocked himself, out of the play. So that was a little frustrating to see because that was a big play in the game. If they make a stop there, right, it changes the game. But the touchdown puts Tampa Bay up. So Malik played a good game minus that one play. I think that really, for the most part, he played superb. So still a huge fan of what Malik Mustafa is doing, and that's something he can get better at. A fellow rookie, Renardo Green, gave up 4 catches in the game, but he was the number 1 ranked PFF player, and he just continues to play well. He had a huge tackle in this game. They had it set up for running back to get out in the open field and make a big play, and he grabs him by the foot and holds on and makes a tackle. Renardo is playing consistent, good football right now. He had 2 pass defenses in the game. That's phenomenal. He continues to get better and better. Now, he is dealing with some sort of a toe injury in his day-to-day. We'll see what that looks like. But 49ers are about to play Seattle. Renardo Green had his first career interception against Seattle not that long ago on Thursday Night Football. So we know how good Renardo can be, and that could be a huge opportunity for him in this game. Now, Nick Sorensen, I thought, did a good job. The 49ers came against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense that was converting on third down at 51%, which was number 2 in the NFL. 49ers defense has not been good against opposing offenses this season getting off the field. They were giving up first downs at 44%. So they need to come in and play better, and they did. They held Tampa Bay to 35% on third down, 5 of 14. Phenomenal. 3 of those were in the first half. So that just shows you how much better they did. Now, penalties in that last drive definitely helped extend that drive, but the 49ers defense was a lot better. And I thought he did a good job of confusing reads for Baker Mayfield from pre-snap to post-snap. There was a lot of times that Baker thought he was going to get man, especially when the 49ers were in bunch sets and they ran zone. And so it was a good look. He did still run his cover 1. He still did run his man, but they were getting off the field. Even a couple of the third down conversions that they got were ones where you have a defender right there. The first one was what a tight throw by Baker Mayfield to Cade Otton. He's got Fred on one side of him. He's got Diamond Lenore on the other, and Lenore reaches across and tries to swipe the ball. Perfect, placement. He just isn't able to make the play. You tip your cap. Great job, Cade Otton and Baker Mayfield. The same drive, another third down conversion, they have 3rd and 8, and Otton catches the ball about 5 yards down the field, and the 49ers just got to tackle him in front of the sticks. Diamond Lenore hits him. Fred Warner comes over to try to clean it up, and Otton gets the first down. Those are the types of things that were happening. It wasn't busts in coverage. It wasn't, huge opportunities because the 49ers were in the wrong coverage. So I thought Sorensen did a good job with coverages in this game, and they had opportunities to even hold Tampa Bay even worse than 35%. So that was really good. Now, he did give some good looks. I liked what he was doing as far as, bringing guys in the box late, still selling out to stop the run, but making sure he was good on the back end. I would say Tampa's second drive of the second half. So their first drive, 49ers stuffed them 3 and out. The second drive, though, that was a really good drive for them. And I actually wasn't the second drive, because the second drive was the one after the punt muff. But so it had been the third drive, was really phenomenal. They answered the 49ers field goal with a long drive for a touchdown. And that one, they established the running game. They did a good job with that. They were hitting the running backs out of the flat. That was really good for them as well. So it was a very good drive. I would say that was the one drive that really got away from the 49ers because the other touchdown drive was on a short field because of the punt muff. And I thought the 49ers could have done a little bit better there. But overall, short fields are tough to hold teams out of the end zone, especially a team that averages 70% of the time they score touchdowns in the red zone. 49ers did hold them to 50%, 2 of 4. So that was really big and critical. But that one drive, the third drive of the game, or the third drive of the second half, was phenomenal for Tampa Bay. They did a good job. 49ers wasn't their best job for sure. So I think that one did get away from them, and they've got to play better there. But they got a lot of shutdowns. When they went down and they took the lead 2017, the very next drive, 3 and out, they were giving their offense an opportunity to go out there and put the game away. Offense wasn't able to do it. Special teams definitely wasn't helping in that regard. But to me, I thought Sorensen did a good job and dialed up some good looks. And on that last drive of the game, the 49ers were absolutely getting pressure on Baker Mayfield. It felt like every single play. They were just on him consistently. Now, the problem is they couldn't finish. They could not get him to the ground on that last drive. No matter what they did, you would almost get to him. He would get rid of the football. You would get a face mask penalty. You get a roughing the passer penalty. You got him escaping, him doing whatever he was doing from Nick Bosa. And let me say this about the play from Nick Bosa. So a lot of people are saying, what are you doing running with his arm? And I completely agree with all of you. I get that for sure. I've heard others say that he said he was afraid of getting a horse collar. I think that's a legitimate thing. But here's what he should have done, and this is a coaching point that they teach you when people stiff arm. And I'm not so sure it's a great stiff arm. It's more, Nick Bosa holding onto his arm. But you grab onto it and you pull straight down. If Nick Bosa would have dropped his weight, and he's not dropping on his body, he's dropping away from him and pulling that arm, even if Baker Mayfield gets away, it's going to whip his body around, and he's not going to be able to throw the ball. Somebody else is going to be able to get there. But more than likely, with Bosa's weight pulling on that arm, he would have brought him to the ground. And so I don't understand why Nick Bosa didn't do that. He kept trying to just run with him. I think he was hoping he was just going to run him right out of bounds. That was not the right method. Yank on that arm, pull him down towards you. Even if he gets away, it slows everything up, gives other people opportunity to get there. So to me, I thought that was a bad play by Nick Bosa. It was great getting on him. It was bad not finishing. You got to do something. You can't just run him to the sideline. So to me, I thought that was frustrating for sure. You had Malik Collins, had him dead to rights at one point. He couldn't get him. And so the 49ers had opportunities. And you could tell Baker Mayfield's clock was sped up. That looked like the old school 49ers getting pressure on the last drive, but it wasn't consistent the whole game. It was more happening once you got to the end of the game, because then Tampa Bay had to get the ball down the field because of time. The rest of the time during the game, they're just getting the ball out quickly, right? 1-2, gone. 1-2, gone. And just getting it out quickly and making it so they made the defensive line irrelevant for the game. And when the 49ers had an opportunity, they did get pressure, but it was a good plan overall for Tampa Bay. They wanted to get rid of the football. They wanted to run the ball consistently, and I thought they did that. Leonard Floyd was very active in this game. If you go back and you watch it, Floyd finds himself around the quarterback, and that's what you're hoping he's going to do. He's competing. He's battling. I thought this was a nice game in the right direction for Leonard Floyd, and I'm hoping he can build on this. 49ers can definitely use him, but a lot of times, too, just getting the chase on. There's a key third down where Baker Mayfield escapes the pocket. Leonard Floyd's running right with him, and he gets his hands up, jumps in his way. Baker throws the ball around him, but he has to throw it to the sideline. It's an inaccurate throw, and Jair Brown's all over Cade Otton and says stop on third down. But it helps that Leonard Floyd is there. Leonard Floyd is running with him. He's in his face. Those are the types of things we need from Floyd, is that when there's pressure, he can go and he can run with these guys and continue the pressure on them when he's on the backside. We saw flashes from Kalia Davis and Evan Anderson in this game. I thought that Kalia Davis played probably the best game that he's played this season, because, since he's been back, it just hasn't been there. But he had the best run defensive grade in this game, 76.4. That was fantastic. Watched him absolutely destroy Cody Mock, the right guard of Tampa Bay, and drive him into the backfield. Just huge penetration there. He was moving up and down the line of scrimmage. It was his best showing, and it needed to be, because they traded for Khalil Davis. There's going to be a decision that needs to be made along the interior defensive line, and you could tell these guys were playing for their jobs, and I thought Khalil Davis did a good job in this game. And I thought Evan Anderson, even though it wasn't a great game performance-wise, he did step up and make a huge play in the red zone on that last drive. He had just gotten the illegal hands to the face a couple plays before, and he's able to go ahead, jump around the block of Bredesen, get into the backfield, and stop the running back for a loss in Bucky Irving. And what was crazy about it, he actually had Bredesen holding him from behind. I talked about the offensive holding. It was not a thing in this game. You can go back and you can watch Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, even Deommodore Lenoir getting tackled and not being able to make tackles and make plays. They were just willing to grab on. And since it wasn't being called, Tampa Bay got more free with it. And it was a huge thing. I mean, there was one run by Irving that got like 10 yards, and Deommodore Lenoir's right there in the hole, and the wide receiver just literally tackles him from behind and creates an open opportunity. So that stuff was going on. Like I said, I'm not going to complain because they were going to allow it both ways. They didn't call any offensive holding on the Niners either. So that's sometimes just the way it goes. So that was something that happened. But Evan Anderson did make a big stop, so I want to give him credit for that. I thought Malik Collins continued to be a beast. These guys are occasionally going to give up ground in their double team, so you're going to see some of that on film. But one-on-one, he made a couple huge stops in the backfield. He did have a sack. And on that sack, what's interesting is he creates the initial pressure. Baker avoids it. Then Leonard Floyd gets there to create more pressure, and Baker comes back away from that, and then Malik Collins gets the sack. So he ended up finishing off what he started and getting there. And how about that? Malik Collins with his 4th sack of the season. He only had 5 all of last year for the Houston Texans, on a trend here to beat his career mark. His career mark is 5. He's on track to beat that mark, and the 49ers needed it from the interior, and he's been really good. I thought Jordan Elliott had a couple of really flash plays in this game as well, and we've seen a lot of movement from him. Sometimes they were letting the 49ers go upfield a little bit, use their aggressiveness against them, run some traps and things like that. We've seen teams do this in the past. They did that in the second half against the 49ers, and I thought it yielded some positive rewards. And I thought, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Malik Collins sometimes caught themselves going upfield a little bit too far. But for the most part, he held in there. He made some plays. And so I was excited about what we saw from those guys. The secondary was great in coverage. I talked about Renardo and Malik Mustafa, but Jair Brown competed, especially when he got matched up with Cade Otton one-on-one. I thought he competed at a high level. And so I was excited about that. And whether it was Isaac Yedem or Rock Yassin or Deommodore Lenoir, they were making plays as well. And so it was good to see the 49ers secondary continue to play well. We're talking about a Tampa Bay team that averaged over 250 yards passing. They didn't even get 250 yards in the entire game. They got 215 yards of total offense in this game. 49ers defense definitely played well. And I have to give props to Devondre Campbell. This was Devondre Campbell's best game of the season. He was flashing in the run game, made a huge play for a tackle for loss in the screen game near the red zone. He was playing one of his best games overall. I thought it was a great performance from Campbell, and this is good news for the 49ers. Campbell may be rounding into form just in time for Dre Greenlaw to come back, and that could mean you have a 3-headed monster at linebacker. So I love seeing what Devondre Campbell did. I'm hoping he can continue that because I thought he did a good job. Did a good job in coverage for the most part. For the most part, there's always a couple plays here and there. And that was a tough matchup, him versus those running backs. We talked about that in the previous show. You don't want those matchups. It happens sometimes, and that made it tough. So you definitely still got that, but that's for any linebacker pretty much, not named Dre and Fred, because those dudes are ridiculous. So you just know you're not going to get as good a play as you would get from Dre. But as long as he can play how he played in this last game, I think the 49ers will be happy with what Devondre Campbell can provide. Now, special teams-wise, this was just a awful performance in a lot of ways. And, it's unfortunate because I don't know where Jake Moody's at as far as health-wise, so I can't comment on if he's 100%, what he's trying to do to help his football team, but I know he wasn't on target. And so we've seen him miss, and when he was missing, these weren't, besides the one he pulled one really bad to the left. You could see his technique was wrong, and I think he admitted that as well. Besides that, the other misses were just slightly missed, and so that's frustrating. But let's see what happens now. If he goes in the next game and he makes his kicks, then maybe he can build some confidence. If he doesn't, the 49ers have an issue when it comes to the kicker. I will say this about Jake Moody. He had been pretty good this season. He was 12 of 13. I know the one miss was a big critical miss against the Los Angeles Rams, but it was from 55 yards. So you have a little bit of grace with that. But when it comes down to it, you can't miss 3 field goals in a game. And so we'll see what happens. Moody coming off an injury. Let's hope that he can round into form. They're going to need him big next week against Seattle. He'll be kicking at home, so there's no excuses. You should know the wind. You should know the layout of the land. Jake Moody, go into Levi Stadium this week during practice. Get some extra kicks in. Make sure you're prepared for what is coming your way because you can't have that mistake again. And then the 49ers, went out and got Nick McLeod and added him to the practice squad. This could be a direct correlation to what happened with, the punt. You just can't have Darrell Luter Jr. getting shoved into Jacob Cowing. And I don't want anyone to blame Jacob Cowing because that's not Jacob Cowing's fault. I'd still love him to catch the football, but how are you supposed to catch a football with Darrell Luter Jr. all over you? You just can't have that happen. The 49ers got to be better when it comes to all aspects of special teams, and we know they focused on it a lot, and it just hasn't gotten to where it should be. The good news is Jake Moody handled the kickoff return issue, right? You go on kickoff team. He handles the kickoffs, kicks them into the end zone. We had all touchbacks. That helps a lot. So that was huge. But there's still other areas, and it's not done because Mitch Wisnowski, who hasn't punted great this season, if it's a short punt, he does phenomenal. I mean, he'll put it in the 5, inside the 5 every time. But he hasn't really had the distance this year, and we think we know why. Dealing with back problems again. He dealt with it during training camp. Now he's dealing with it again. We'll see what happens with Mitch Wisnowski, but I think that's a concern for the 49ers. But special teams, they need to get a lot better. The 49ers right now, 31st best special teams unit in the NFL, according to DVOA. It's got to get better. But there was a lot to like in this game. There's a lot of good, especially on offense and defense, where the 49ers have two of the top in DVOA in the entire league. Number 3 on offense, number 5 on defense. They just got to get everything fixed and rounded into form. And they've got an opportunity this week against Seattle to go out there and prove that they're better than what they put on tape against Tampa Bay. I will say this, Tampa Bay's a good football team, and Tampa Bay has some big wins this year. They beat Detroit. That's the one Detroit lost. Of course, they didn't have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, but how long have we been saying it's not an excuse for the 49ers to lose without their key players? It's not an excuse for Tampa Bay either. We're going to stay consistent on that. If it's not an excuse for the 49ers, it's not an excuse for somebody else. You play with who you got, and you take advantage of what you got. So 49ers got to go get a big win against Seattle this week. I think they can do it. And we'll be talking about that for the rest of the week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.